Today we're going to talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's tragic death and what it means for the future of the Supreme Court, and my interview with both the star of the new series, The Comey Rule, Jeff Daniels, and its writer-director, Billy Ray. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So, not gonna lie, this is an episode that I did not want to have to make. On Friday evening, we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She led the fight for women's rights in the 70s. She's essentially the reason that the 14th Amendment's Equal Protections Guarantee included equality of the sexes. She served 27 years on the Supreme Court, and she was its most prominent member. She was 5'1", but she was a giant. And now we're put in the awful position of not only mourning her death, but doing so under the threat of Donald Trump naming her successor to the court. And to the surprise of exactly no one, Trump's already vowed to put forward a nominee, and McConnell's already vowed to bring that nominee up for a vote in the Senate. And just so we're clear, yes, that is the same Mitch McConnell who said this in 2016.
Mr. President, the next justice could fundamentally alter the direction of the Supreme Court and have a profound impact on our country. So, of course, the American people should have a say in the court's direction. It is the President's constitutional right to nominate a Supreme Court justice, and it is the Senate's constitutional right to act as a check on a president and withhold its consent. As Chairman Grassley and I declared weeks ago and reiterated personally to President Obama, the Senate will continue to observe the Biden rule so that the American people have a voice in this momentous decision. The American people may well elect a president who decides to nominate Judge Garland for Senate consideration. The next president may also nominate somebody very different. Either way, our view is this: give the people a voice in filling this vacancy.
Now, for the sake of my own sanity, I'm not going to sit here and try and call out Mitch McConnell's hypocrisy because his moral bankruptcy is well known. So I'll save my breath because he's not worth it. But there is some hope of putting pressure on other Republican senators because I don't believe this is a fight that they want. This is a fight that galvanizes Democrats. The Supreme Court is going to decide cases on healthcare, on abortion, on immigration. These are all winning issues for Democrats. These are all issues where Democrats poll well in with the vast majority of Americans. You think vulnerable Republican senators want to be the reason that the ACA is gutted after what happened in midterms? I wouldn't want to be put in that position with an election coming up in 6 weeks. And there are a lot of people in that position, with Tom Tillis fighting for his political life, with Joni Ernst, with Cory Gardner, Kelly Loeffler, with Lindsey Graham. Dealing with another vicious Supreme Court fight is only going to mobilize the exact voters that Democrats need to win. You think people in the suburbs are going to sit idly by while Trump solidifies an anti-choice court for a generation? They're going to vote, and they're going to do so with the Supreme Court top of mind. So let's listen to what some senators have said about the very specific issue of voting on Supreme Court nominees in election years. Here's Lindsey Graham.
Justice Scalia dies in 2016. The primary process is ongoing. And if you look back in 100 years, nobody has been replaced under that circumstance. If you listen to what Joe Biden said in Bush 41, you should hold it over to the next election. Joe is right a lot. So I felt like I was doing the traditional thing there. When it came to Sotomayor and Kagan, I thought I did the traditional thing. Now I'll tell you this. This may make you feel better, but I really don't care. If an opening comes in the last year of President Trump's term and the primary process is started, we'll wait to the next election. And I've got a pretty good chance of being the judiciary.
You're on the record.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold the tape.
Here's Tom Tillis.
Now, I will tell you that I'm also a member of the Judiciary Committee. Y'all may have heard that we have a Supreme Court nomination opening. I happen to be one of the senators who signed on to the letter to tell this president that we're not going to nominate a Supreme Court justice until the people have spoken. Now, just today, I was on the Senate floor, and I had Senator Schumer and Senator Leahy talking about how we're not doing our job. We're absolutely doing our job. They were talking about how we have a constitutional obligation to advise and consent. I said, we've done that. They said, what do you mean? I said, we've advised the president that we're not going to consent to one of his nominees. We're going to let the American people speak.
Here's Marco Rubio.
We have an obligation to do it, but not now. The term of the Supreme Court is already, or they just started it, but it's not all year long. The court can function with 8 justices. It does it all the time, especially when justices have to recuse themselves. For example, Kagan had to recuse herself early in her term because she just left the administration. We're going to have an election in November where this vacancy is going to be an item of debate and voters are going to get to weigh in. So I just don't think it's wise, and there's precedent for this, for a president nearing the last few months of his administration to put someone on the court that may be there for 30 years.
And here's Chuck Grassley.
The people deserve to be heard, and they should be allowed to decide through their vote for the next president the type of person that should be on the Supreme Court. This is a reasonable approach. It is a fair approach.
So I think I've made my point, right? If you are looking for reasons that these senators should not move forward on election year appointments, they've already made those cases themselves. So here's where we're at so far. The Senate is 53-47 in Republicans' favor. That means we need 4 defections to account for a Pence tiebreaker. Now, Susan Collins has already come out and released a statement saying, quote, I do not believe that the Senate should vote on the nominee prior to the election. In fairness to the American people, the decision on a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court should be made by the president who is elected on November 3rd. And yes, I know it's Susan Collins, take it with a grain of salt, but it's a good start. Lisa Murkowski's also come out and said that she'd rather whoever won the election make the SCOTUS pick, so that's 2. We still haven't heard from Mitt Romney, although I'd actually expect him to do the right thing. We're still waiting on a move from Chuck Grassley, Cory Gardner, so we have a few Republican senators who've still yet to speak out. And then there's the Arizona race. Martha McSally is facing off against Democrat Mark Kelly, and that race is actually a special election. Martha McSally was appointed to the seat after John McCain died, and so legally, election law states that the winner has to be seated by the end of November, not in January with the rest of the Senate class. So if and when Trump puts forward a nominee, depending on how long it takes, a Mark Kelly victory would narrow the Senate from 53-47 to 52-48, meaning we only need 3 defections. And I honestly don't believe it'll take that long for Trump to put forward a nominee, but in the event that there's a lame duck appointment, we could possibly have one more vote. Now, with all of that said, all of the numbers, the statements, whatever, I have to say this. I'm not so naive to place my trust in the Republican Senate. Even if it's political suicide for them, if I've learned one thing over the last 4 years, it's that Republican senators will not do the right thing. They're not moved by any sense of integrity or morality or conscience, and definitely not shame. So while I think that hitting them with a relentless barrage of their own words, proving their hypocrisy on a daily basis is absolutely necessary, we need to do more. So we need to make it abundantly clear that we can and we should expand the court. And right off the bat, the right's going to say that Democrats are undermining the Constitution, that we're breaking the law. No. Nowhere in the U.S. Constitution does it say that the Supreme Court has 9 seats. That power was left to Congress. And in fact, the number of justices has changed 7 times. The Supreme Court's had anywhere from 6 to 10 justices. 9 is arbitrary. We keep it because it's a norm. So Republicans should spare us the sanctimony about breaking a norm while they are literally in the process of breaking norms themselves. So if they want to subvert the will of the people with a rule that they themselves coined, then we need to expand the court, period. And if you're still unsure, ask yourself what Mitch McConnell would do if the roles were reversed. That's your answer. The fact is that it's not going to be Democrats who are to blame if 4 new justices are added. This isn't unprompted, right? It's not out of the blue. We don't want this. This is only in direct response to the subversion of our democracy, to a Republican Party that effectively will not perform their constitutional duty to allow Democratic presidents, Supreme Court nominees, but they'll allow it for Republicans. That's not how a democracy works. So when Republicans like Lindsey Graham inevitably feign outrage and shriek about how far-left anarchists are undermining our government, just remember that this is because they broke their own rule. So we need to be clear about that so that they're not surprised when it happens. so that they can't pretend that expanding the courts was anything other than a response to their own actions. And the fact is, why not? Like, I'm sorry, but I'm tired of being shamed into showing restraint and taking the high road, even when Republicans are setting this country's institutions on fire. And it's only because they know that those on the left respond to shame. And they're right. But there's only so many times that we can fall for this act. And that limit's been hit multiple times over. By the way, there's this idea about expanding the courts that this would be a politically risky move. You know what's risky? Not doing it. You want to know how people feel about the Supreme Court? The night that RBG died on ActBlue, the donation processing platform, Democratic donors gave more money online in the 9 p.m. hour after RBG died, $6.2 million, than in any other single hour since ActBlue launched. Democratic donors broke the record again in the 10 p.m. hour, giving another $6.3 million, which is more than $100,000 a minute. In the first 20 hours after Ginsburg's death, ActBlue processed more than $62 million. So don't tell me that this is politically risky. What would be risky is ignoring an issue that the people care about, that will actually drive people to the polls, and that's the Supreme Court. You know what's politically risky? Not protecting a Supreme Court that would gut the ACA. The case is in front of the court the week after the election. If a Trump-nominated justice is confirmed and we have a 6-3 court, forget it. A death knell for Obamacare. And protecting the ACA won Democrats 41 seats in the midterms. We won the House by the biggest margin in American history. That's not risky, that's a mandate. You know what would be politically risky? Not fighting like hell at the prospect of a 6-3 conservative court that would stop at nothing to overturn Roe v. Wade. 70% of Americans do not want Roe overturned. 70%. Democrats need to not only not be scared to fight, but to fight for something that the vast majority of this country believes in. We need to stop taking our marching orders based on right-wing talking points. Of course Fox News is going to say that expanding the courts is some far-left plot to destroy the government. But that's only because they are actively destroying the government on the right. It's happening in real time. It is a clinic in projection. Really early in the primary, Pete Buttigieg had a really good line. And I'm paraphrasing, but it's that no matter what we do, they're going to call us socialists, so we might as well do what's right. If ever there was a time to not capitulate to the GOP and let them dictate the terms of the conversation, this is it. The fact is, we're not powerless. There is a remedy. If we take back power in January, then this is something we need to do. Republican presidents have won the popular vote one time in the last 7 elections. One time. The Republican majority in the Senate represents 15 million fewer Americans than Democratic senators do. We are living under minority rule. And it may not feel like that because Fox News has a lot of viewers and Trump's electoral map is red, but 4 million people watching Tucker Carlson is not 130 million American voters. And that red map by county doesn't show where people live, it shows land. The people in power right now don't represent this country. They represent themselves and their own interests. And the first step to fixing that is acknowledging it. So, look, I know it's easy to feel despair, but we don't have the luxury of wasting time. We don't even have any time to spend mourning RBG because now we have to deal with this. So our job right now is to fight. We have 40-something days until the election. Honor RBG's memory by fighting as hard as she did throughout her career. Fight as hard as she did to survive through bouts of cancer so that Trump couldn't replace her. That's our job right now. It's the least we can do. And the truth is that we have a lot to fight for. Fight to get a Senate majority so we can end the filibuster, so we can pass legislation to save the planet, legislation to codify our right to vote, to expand health coverage, to protect a woman's right to choose what she does with her own body. We're fighting to expand the court so that when those very items are litigated, they'll be upheld. We're fighting for statehood for DC and Puerto Rico so that everyone in this country is represented, not just white people in rural states. And more immediately, we're fighting for relief from a pandemic that's already taken 200,000 Americans and that the Republican Party is hell-bent on pretending doesn't exist. So whatever your issue is, fight for that. So put pressure on your senators, donate to Democratic candidates, and this is what I always say, be in charge of the people in your circle. Make sure that your kids and parents and grandparents, your cousins and friends, neighbors, make sure everyone is registered to vote. Go to votesaveamerica.com/register. I'll put that link in the post description if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. That is your job. And even if you're registered, verify that registration. You can do it on the same website. Republicans will kick you off the rolls if they can. So don't leave the organizing up to the organizers. It's up to you. What happens in the next 6 weeks will impact this country for a generation. If you have kids or grandkids, this is going to be the world they grow up in. If you're a parent or a grandparent, this could shape the world for the rest of your lives. So when you look back to this moment right here, when you ask yourself if you did everything you could, make sure that the answer is yes. To watch my interview with Jeff Daniels and Billy Ray, check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. Okay, hang in there, everyone. Talk to you next week.